Winning Dakar one day is a high priority for me. I never considered myself a Formula One driver, I just considered myself a driver in any kind of motorsport. These are the words of Fernando Alonso, who spoke last year on Jake Humphries' High Performance podcast about his ambitions outside of Formula One. Now today, Friday, January the 5th, marks the first day of the 2024 Dakar Rally, and the first event of the second annual World Rally Raid Championship. Alonso, of course, had one of the best seasons of any driver in Formula One last year, and he's fully focused for now on improving that performance of Aston Martin in the upcoming season. But a pivotal aspect of his initial retirement from Formula One back in 2018 was his ambition to find success across the world of motorsport. And he did exactly that, winning the Daytona 24-hour, the Le Mans 24-hour twice, and though he continually fell just short of that Triple Crown unification at the Indy 500, the Dakar Rally in 2020 was another bullet point on Alonso's list of motorsport's great challenges. In 2020, Alonso took to the Saudi route with co-driver Mark Comer, Mark a winner himself in the motorcycle classes and a veteran of the Dakar organisation as a whole. After a series of private tests and warm-up events with the same Toyota team that he took on Le Mans with, Alonso was on the pace, or at least close enough in the opening stages. The driving style changes that he had to employ still proved challenging despite all that preparation. Throughout the prologue and the first stage, Alonso really did run well, but the first drama struck during stage 2, as Mark, his co-driver, explained. After 50 kilometers, we caught the car that started in front of us, and at that moment, its dust was combined with that of a motorcycle which deprived us of vision. We hit a ditch that made us lose the wheel. When we tore the wheel off, it remained 30 meters behind us. We had to change the suspension triangle, the shield, the steering wheel arm. We worked out there for 2 hours, and in the end, we were able to restart. And then after recovering from that incident, repairing the car to the point at which it was able to continue in the event, Fernando and Mark focused their attention on the remaining stages. But the stages of the Dakar are never peaceful, never fair. They're always laced with danger, like a minefield of racing woe. And that next moment of drama, the crescendo of the whole rally run really, came for Alonso in the form of a barrel roll in stage 10 as his Hilux tipped forward over the top of the dune, and as Matthias Ekstrom, the rallycross champion fellow Dakar newbie with Audi, he noted this as one of the key skills that you have to adapt to when you're learning that new driving style for the desert, getting the car to tip over the top of the dunes as quickly and as safely as possible, again and again and again as you plot your semi-guided route through the sand. The dunes in the Dakar are never uniform in their shape. They're normally steep on one side and shallow on the other, so you have to balance that brake and throttle input as you go over the top of the crest. If you get it right, you can gain valuable tenths on every gradient change. Get it wrong, and you can turn over and be on your head, just as Alonso was in 2020 and just as Sainz Sr. was last year. The structure of the changes is laid out in road books that each team are given shortly before the start of the stages. It's a bit like the WRC in some capacity, where the road books will indicate when the major turns and checkpoints are along the route, how you get between each bivouac. It's just the scale of these stages that dwarfs the WRC, with the total distance of last year's winning entry being just over 45 hours across the 2-week period. So after Alonso's second big crash, all the technical issues, the repairs, and all the learning throughout the event, I mean, it's one of those classic sayings in motorsport, either you win or you learn, and for Alonso the eventual finishing position was P13, over 4 hours behind that year's winner, fellow Spanish motorsport legend Carlos Sainz Sr. But Carlos complimented Fernando's performance. He said, "I think Fernando has been very brave to take this decision, and he managed to drive a good race. I congratulated him for that, and I think with more experience he could do much better. The Dakar isn't an easy race. You need to have the experience, and of course, that last step in speed is the most difficult one. I'm sure with more experience he will be closer. However, clearly he has a great talent." Now, the history of the Dakar Rally itself is basically split into 3 main eras. The first chapters and the original concept for the race were born from the ideas of Thierry Sabine, a French motorcycle racer who, while competing in the Sahara, found himself captivated by the stunning landscape of Africa. He envisioned it as the stage for one of motorsport's pinnacle events. From Paris, France to the Senegalese capital of Dakar, over 10,000 kilometers through the North and West African terrain, it was a challenge that attracted adventurers from around the planet. They took on the route in equipment from Citroens to Renaults to Rolls-Royces, and then through the 80s came the Porsches, the Peugeots, the Mitsubishis, bringing with them greater financial investment, technical adaptation, and even greater press attention as people from around the planet would look at this challenge and think, well, the rules are open. If I can bring a car, I can modify my own car to take on the desert challenges and maybe even win it. It was such an attractive idea and such a challenge for anyone who wanted to give it a go. And even in the off-road world of the Dakar Rally, the classic motorsport phrase of you win on Sunday and then sell on Monday, that mentality still rang true, and that again fueled the manufacturer participation. along with the incredible WRC seasons of the 1980s and the 1990s, the Dakar notoriety, popularity, it continued to snowball. And then in 1991, a young French motorcycle rider named Stéphane Peter Hansel took his first win, the first Dakar title in a career that will become forever written into the history books, as his grand total of 14 wins across the motorcycle and car classes meant that Stéphane stands alone as Rally Raid's most successful driver and rider. Now, 2001 marked both the final time that the rally used the original route of Paris to Dakar, and the first time in the history of the race that a female driver won the overall crown, Mitsubishi's Jutta Kleinschmidt. And then, throughout the mid-2000s, that factory involvement of Mitsubishi and Volkswagen continued to increase in scale, as did the overall entrance list, which reached a record of 688 across all classes in 2005. Then the second era of the Dakar Rally really came with the move to South America. In 2008, political instability in the African continent proved to be too dangerous and too logistically challenging to play host to another Dakar event, but the spirit of the race lived on, and they had to cross the ocean to arrive on the roads and wilderness of Argentina, Chile, Peru, Paraguay and Bolivia. Sainz and Al-Attiyah both chalked up wins in this era as the cars and drivers adapted to new routes throughout South America, and the first event in 2009, a crowd of nearly 600,000 lined the streets of Buenos Aires to salute the departing competitors and the teams. During the parade, the opening ceremonies of the rally, the continent was so proud to play host to that legendary event, and that era continued all the way until 2019. The third era then begins in 2020, the current Saudi Arabian route that basically catches us up to the present day, and there's a brilliant PDF that's linked on the Dakar's official website, a kind of history book that I'll leave a link to in the description of this video that really dives into great detail about the year-by-year history of every class. Now, the move to Saudi was one that to some extent alienated fans of the old format, with the route reduced to the borders of a single country rather than a continent-spanning journey, but the challenge remained and people still kept turning up. There are 354 names on the entry list for this year, and with a finish rate of about 62% in last year's running, we can expect some major attrition from this year's route. It will be one with 12 special stages that in their total length are roughly equal to double last year's Le Mans winning distance. They'll be included within that a special 48-hour marathon stage too that will prove really challenging for everyone entering. Reigning champion Nasser Al-Attiyah will be shooting for a 6th Dakar victory in his first year with the ProDrive team. He'll be teaming up with WRC legend Sebastian Loeb in that team's second car. ProDrive, a team that, at least in my mind, are more prominently remembered for being the factory behind that legendary blue and gold Subaru when Carlos Sainz and Colin McRae were battling it out at the top of the WRC in the early 2000s. Now, Nasser took the win last year with Toyota, who have proved to be both a reliable and fast package across surface changes, so for him to make that switch to new equipment to hold his position at the front while doing that would be a huge achievement, just as it would be in any form of motorsport when someone switches from a top team to a different top team while maintaining that position at the front. Now, Carlos Sainz, Stéphane Peter Hansel and Matthias Ekstrom will all run the all-electric Audi RSQ e-tron team. They're now in their third iteration, and that's a particularly special technical achievement in and of itself. It's a car that's powered by a 286 kilowatt battery system, itself being charged by the energy generated from a 600 horsepower DTM racing engine and their regenerative braking. To add to the challenges that the suspension and the temperature management causes in the desert, Audi is looking to capitalise on that experience in Formula E and prove on their third attempt that the most challenging endurance race in the world can be conquered by technical innovation and an electric powertrain. It's a bit like the idea of them winning Le Mans with a diesel engine. Winning the Dakar with a hybrid car would be a huge technical triumph and admittedly also a powerful marketing tool for Audi's electric vehicle lineup, foreshadowing too that technical prowess that they're looking to bring to Formula 1 in a few years when they join up with Sauber. So in the Dakar Rally more broadly then, one of those key aspects for the overall demand of reliability is the repair time of each of the car's components. It's a bit like in the WEC or the WRC. Repairs during time stages can cost you valuable time against your competitors, and the complexity of that Audi package has some fellow drivers sceptical of its endurance capability. You can imagine where if you're stopping at the side of the road, yes, everyone's going to get a puncture, but if your punctures cost 10 seconds more to fix or your powertrain costs an hour longer to repair, that's going to put you out of the running if you run into those problems. I think Ekstrom as well, when he was explaining about his preparation, was saying, look, it's not about increasing the speed of the best days, it's just about reducing the number of bad days that you have. And that's what Audi are going to try and do, and that's what has held them back. in the last few years. And elsewhere on the grid, beyond the Audis and the Toyotas, you've got the Minis and the Fords. They'll be looking to steal the thunder from the frontrunners of the last few years. And of course, what we haven't really touched on this video, and what is to such a great extent a major component of the history of the Dakar, is the bikes. No co-drivers for them, far more dangerous and far more isolated. I think for many, those incredible camera shots of the dirt bikes ripping over the sand dunes and chucking dust into the sky, those are the iconic images of the Dakar, just as they were for Thierry, the race's founder, and Stefan, the legend of the entire sport. I think the Dakar in its totality is just such a fascinating challenge for so many reasons. It's the surface changes and the sliding of World Rallycross, the mental and physical challenge of Le Mans, the co-driver-driver partnership of the WRC, the danger of the Isle of Man TT without any of the pomp and the farcicalness of Formula 1, all with a talented driver-rider lineup that matches any timesheet in any series around the world. You've got that spirit of the teamwork beyond the boundaries of racing class or manufacturer allegiance. It's essential to the ethos of the event itself. It's born from such extreme conditions that you help someone out. If they need the help, you stop. You pull over and help them out. You sacrifice yourself for the wider success of the overall sport. Obviously, that has a limit, but you see scenes like this one from last year's race where a truck team saved a stricken T3 car stuck in a fast-flowing river. Emblematic of the bonds that racing in such arduous conditions can form, being in that adversity offers a striking contrast to the snootiness and the nitpicking that we see week in and week out in the Formula 1 news. The distribution of media coverage, as it is with all motorsport events in the modern age, that'll be a key challenge for Dakar. They know that no one can tune in for every minute of the live action, so ensuring that the distribution of the highlight clips, the moments, the most exciting parts, and the reality of the best stories in the sport, getting that to the largest number of fans possible will be really, really key for the sport's popularity if the World Rally Raid Championship wants to build just like sports cars are doing, just like Formula 1 is reaching a peak at the moment. They have to learn those lessons in the right way. I think in England you can tune into the Dakar on Eurosport and you can find great highlights and analysis on the Dirtfish channel and the Red Bull channels, along with the content from all the teams themselves. And what's also brilliant about the Dakar is that independent privateer aspect, being able to enter your own car that you've built. If you get the right licenses, you pass the right safety checks, you can show up and give it a go. And I think that independence, that privateer aspect, really extends to the media side as well. So what many of those privateer teams will be doing is trying to sell and tell their own stories in a way of marketing themselves without the production value of all those big teams, but then you get to see that reality of what it's truly like to be out there isolated in the desert with all the best drivers in the world. Overall then, I think even in its modern iteration, it's easy to see why the Dakar is heralded as one of motorsport's pinnacles, one of its greatest events, and Alonso's return is probably going to come after his second retirement from Formula 1, and then if he does end up clinching that elusive silverware, it will become even more difficult to deny that Fernando is one of the greatest cross-category racers in the history of motorsport. And also, as we look forward into January, we all kind of bide our time into Formula 1 testing. You've got the start of Formula E coming up, getting underway next weekend, as well as the IMSA Daytona 24-hour coming up at the end of the month. January is still packed with motorsport action. And for now, though, I'll say thank you very much for watching. Check out crash.net for coverage across the motorsport world, and subscribe to this channel for all the headlines from the world of Formula 1.